live. Hopefully everyone is doing well out there. Post a comment, let me know where you're from. Make sure we're working on YouTube, and we'll get started. Should be any moment now. All right. All right, here we go. Okay, we are working. Okay, I am Drew Badger, the English Fluency Guide, and as always, welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today, we're going to help you become more fluent, specifically by working on your listening practice. I get lots of students, especially viewers of my YouTube videos, asking me, is this the way I normally speak? And it's kind of true, but it's kind of not. And I actually speak in different ways depending on the person I'm speaking with. So we're going to talk about that in this video, and I'm going to give you some examples just for some what I call elite listening practice. But before we do that, you can let me know if you have any questions. I will keep my eye on the chat as usual, and we'll see how we go. All right, so first of all, I just want to make something clear for people. Typically when you watch videos like this, you know, people teaching a language, they're going to be speaking more clearly, they're going to be speaking slower, and usually the vocabulary is going to be different. So I want to compare these different ways of speaking. So they're basically these, again, three things. I'll just list them up here. And I want to show you this in two different ways just to make sure it's very clear for people. So we have the vocab. So the actual words that people are using will be different. So the way I speak in these videos, I have to speak to be understood. So if I use a quote or something from a movie, or I use some other expression that people aren't familiar with, it's going to be more difficult for people to understand. So that's why I have to make sure I'm using vocabulary that's clear and understandable by most people. And then we'll just call this like the pro for pronunciation. So this could be accent, the way I'm blending sounds, or how clearly I'm speaking. So right now you can hear most of the words I'm saying, or pretty much all of them. Hopefully you should hear them. And even though I'm blending a little bit the sounds of my voice or the sounds of words, the basic idea is that you can still understand what I'm saying. And of course, the last thing is speed. This is the speed of my speech. So usually what happens, since we can take these three variables or these three different elements of speech, we can look at the different kinds of speech that native speakers use. And just to make it clear for people, typically, if we imagine like a regular English lesson, it's going to have kind of like a low level of all of these things, or an easier level of these things. But a native speaker, it's actually going to be at like a whole different level. So native speech will be up here, and it's very difficult for people so English learners who study English in a classroom, it's much more difficult for them to go from this directly up here. Okay, and the reason is because, well, the vocabulary is different, the pronunciation is different, the speed is usually different as well. Often it's much faster. One of the big differences, though, is the accent and the clarity of the speech. So clarity just means how clear the speech is. So you can hear me, I'm pronouncing words clearly, you can understand what I'm saying, even though there's some sound blending there. But I can give some examples of that. But again, the main idea here is that I don't want you to feel bad if you don't understand natives, or if you have trouble communicating at that level, if you mostly are learning down here. Okay, so you need to go from here up to this level, and this is just an example of that, just to show the difference in the kind of speech. So what we do in programs like Fluent for Life or on this channel, what we're trying to do is get you up like this. So getting you more used to the vocabulary, the pronunciation, and a lot of different accents. So getting you used to different accents, and then getting you used to faster speech. Okay, So if you can get used to all of these things, then it's much easier to understand native speakers. But you can see, excuse me, it's much easier if you try to do this in steps rather than trying to jump directly from up here. So if you're watching a regular English class and then you try to have a conversation with a native, usually the native speaker is going to pay attention to your speaking level, and they will know that by your accent or the kinds of vocabulary you use, or even just the way you carry yourself, so the way you look. So it's very interesting, like if I'm speaking with, as an example, just some Japanese people here in Japan, and I'm trying to speak English with them, then I will pay attention to how they speak. And if I'm hearing some errors in grammar or pronunciation, then I will usually lower my speaking speed or my kind of general speech to their level. So it's easier for me to lower my speech to that level so I can communicate rather than trying to just bring them up to my level. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So all these things are happening in pronunciation and vocabulary and speed as we're going through differences in the way people communicate. But again, it's just much easier if you try to work on these things individually to get from one level to the next. Okay, so as an example, if let's say you can understand my speech, then maybe watch this video again at 2 times the speed. So you're trying to control for one variable. You're still listening to my speech, but you're making it faster. Okay, so and you can do this with any video, not just mine. But anytime you take some speech just to practice making it faster, or if you can hear a person saying it more quickly, that's going to prepare you better for actual native speech. Okay. But in general, it's better to hear an actual faster version rather than just like a sped up, like someone actually reading something more quickly or saying something more quickly, as I'll show you in this video. Okay. But if you're trying to improve and you notice you have trouble listening to, let's say, particular accents, so people who might, I don't know, they come from a particular place or they speak in a particular way, whatever that is, if you have trouble with that, then spend more time with those people. So if you live in the UK or America, wherever you live, and there are different groups of people, maybe they speak in an accent you're not familiar with, then as you spend more time with those people, you will become used to the way they speak. Okay. All right. So let me check questions very quickly to see if there are any comments, and then we will get going with just a few examples. Hopefully this video will not be too long. We'll see what kind of questions people have. Looks like we just have some greetings over there. Arturo, nice to see you there. Hater. Or if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Everything's okay. We've got some, looks like some Thai there. Good morning, teacher. Miss Official, hi, teacher. Neela, hello, everyone. And HHS, hello, Nicholas, hi. Keiko says, good morning, George. Nice to see you there. Hater again. How can I learn any language with the correct beginning? Oh, that's an interesting question. Maybe we'll come back to that. This video is really about kind of the higher level for people that have been learning English for a long time the traditional way, so they already know a lot of English or they can understand me, but they still have trouble understanding some natives. Again, the actual language is different. So the speed is different, the pronunciation is different, the vocabulary is usually different. So as you get more exposure to those things, faster speech, different accents, a variety of speakers, it will naturally, it's like a guarantee you will improve your listening as you do those things. All right, just like you would learn your native language and get exposed to lots of different speakers in your language. So the same thing. Usually when parents are teaching children, they will give examples of things that are nice and slow and easy, but if they're talking to their friends, kids are listening to that. So kids are hearing the examples of how their parents are talking to maybe friends or teachers or something like that, and that's how they learn. So they're getting all this exposure, and the more you get, the faster you can improve your level of listening. And you'll notice here also, as you get examples of these different pronunciations, your pronunciation improves as well. So the listening and pronunciation are linked, and as you get more examples of that, you will hear and get more used to that and start sounding more like that yourself. All right. So as far as the best way to start learning any language, I guess I'll just answer this very quickly. The basic idea is you should be learning like a native speaker. So you have to learn the language as a first language if you can get someone to teach it to you that way. And if you can't, then you just have to find content on YouTube or wherever that's appropriate for your level. And I could go into lots of detail about how to teach languages from the beginning, but if you look at my playlist, so I have a beginning English grammar, it's like best beginning English grammar playlist here on YouTube. If you look at that, you will see how I teach English from absolute beginner. So using all English to teach people who don't speak any English. So if I was dropped in a jungle somewhere and had to teach some people, or if I was just in a different country and I couldn't use translations or anything to teach, it's like those like movies where you see like Enemy Mine is a good movie. Enemy Mine. So Enemy Mine is a good movie that has an example of this where you have two people or kind of one alien and a guy. I guess they're both aliens to each other. But you're seeing that example of how people or different aliens are trying to communicate with each other. And another example of this is the 13th Warrior. If you have seen either of these two movies, I think both of these are based off of books, I think. 13th Warrior is based on a book called Eaters of the Dead, but it's interesting how they show there's a character, Antonio Banderas, is like traveling with some Vikings, I think. I don't. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But they show how he's listening and he's trying to learn their language without actually like being able to communicate with them. And so they're sitting there and they say, "How did you learn our language?" And he said, "I listened," and he's paying attention to them. But again, these are examples of how you do it. But when you're learning a different language, you don't want to translate because that's basically teaching you to translate when you speak. So how you learn is how you speak. Anyway, watch that beginning grammar playlist and you will see examples of how I teach that way. So teaching English all in English. All right, good question though. Piero says hi. Fidel says hello, good morning. Remember to hit the like button, says Keiko. Yes, good idea. Ordo says good evening here. Marceliana from, I don't know where you're from, says hello, teacher. Manuel, good night from Colombia. Eunice, hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. The Toy, greetings from Brazil. And Aziz, hello. Oh, Lopez, hi, everybody. Bridget, nice to see you there. Maria, Naila, or Naila. Do you know the American professor, A.J. Hogue? I learned with him. Yes. Well, I don't know him personally, but I know who he is. Yeah, for sure. Moe says, hello, good morning from Chiang Mai. And as he says, how can we understand natives quite easily? I sometimes get confused when they speak. That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. And then Solar says, good morning, Emmanuel as well from Nigeria. I was just speaking a little bit faster there. All right, so let's look at some examples just from my real life about the way I speak with natives. And I'm not going to, probably the thing that gets most confusing for people is casual speech, because typically in a business setting, people will speak a bit more clearly. They might still have more difficult vocabulary, and you will hear casual vocabulary in professional situations in English, and there are a lot of phrasal verbs used as well. But you don't need to have like a lot of knowledge of like movies and things like that in order to do that, and people will generally be speaking more quickly. But casual, everyday conversation can often be the most difficult for people because people are just very relaxed about their speech. So let's say we have two natives over here. So two natives are talking to each other, and we have a third. Here's the English learner is trying to listen to these two natives talking with each other. All right. So they're talking back and forth, and typically, again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if we only have a native with a non-native, the native will try to bring their level down to make sure they can communicate. But when you hear natives talking to each other, it's like they're speaking a different language. So just as an example, I'm trying to think about a conversation I had. So over the weekend, I had a phone call with a friend of mine. And basically he said, like, what did he say? He said, weren't you going to go shopping yesterday? And I was like, yeah, I didn't really have time. I wanted to go shopping, but I didn't have time. All right, let me say that again slowly. So I'm kind of doing reported speech, so I'm talking about what I did, but I'm explaining it like I would tell it to a native. So he said, weren't you going to go shopping? I thought you were going to go shopping, and I was like, I don't really have time. Okay, so let me write this down, and I've really said that quickly. I can repeat it for you a few times just to hear the difference. But the vocabulary is going to be a little bit different, and the speed and the blending is quite different as well. All right, so let me just say that again. I'll try to say it exactly. I don't remember the exact quote. I should write it down. So Eunice says, "I thought you gonna go shopping." Yes. So basically, that's what he was saying. So he said, "I thought you were gonna go shopping," and I was like, "Yeah, I thought I was gonna go shopping, but I ain't had time. I thought I was gonna go shopping, but I ain't have time. I thought I was gonna go shopping, but I didn't have time." So he said, "Weren't you going to go shopping?" And I was like, "Yeah, I thought I was going to go shopping, but I didn't have time." Okay. All right, let me write this down, and we'll kind of break this down. But be careful. We want to make sure I'm still speaking correctly, even though I'm speaking fast. All right. So the basic idea here. Let's take a look at this. So he said something like this, and I don't remember the exact quote. It's just I'm trying to think about real conversations. So he said, weren't you going to go shopping? So he said, weren't you going to go shopping? And I was like, what did I say exactly? I was going to go, but I didn't have time. All right, so notice a couple of things here. So he said, I'm talking about what he said, but when I'm talking about myself, I use the very common, very casual was like. So instead of saying, and I said, so it's the same thing, but this is very casual, very common, especially you will hear young people talking about this, and I was like. All right, now I was like is a very, and it depends on the people. So he was like, she was like, or we were like, they were like. But this is very useful because you can describe speech or you can describe some kind of action. So I was like this, and he was like, I'm describing some kind of action, like I was doing this, and then he was doing that. All right, but we just say, and I was like, and I was like. Okay, so the speech is a little bit different. We've got the different vocabulary here, but notice how I blend it together. So I's like, all right? So it sounds like and, I's like, I's like. So I's like. So instead of I was like, I could pronounce it more clearly so you can hear what I'm saying, but because the native friend understands my English, I don't need to speak so clearly. I can communicate faster and explain the information I want. So when I'm talking with the person, right now I'm telling you, but I'm explaining this as if, or like, I would be telling it to another friend. So if a friend of mine says, hey, what did you do yesterday? I said, oh, well, a friend of mine asked me like, oh, weren't you going to go shopping? Weren't you going to go shopping? Weren't you going to go shopping? And I was like, I was going to go, but I didn't have time. And I was like, and I's like, and I's like, and I's like, I was going to go. All right, so instead of going to go, this becomes gonna. So I was gonna go, but notice even this here becomes more like I's gonna. And I get very relaxed, very casual when I speak, especially with good friends of mine. So I was gonna go, but I didn't have time. So I's gonna go, but I didn't. So I don't even say I didn't. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. All right. So he said, weren't you going to go? So he's also using gonna. Weren't you gonna go shopping? So the same gonna here. Weren't you gonna go shopping? And I was like, so eyes like, again, the same thing. Eyes like, eyes again. And I'm saying this quite quickly. And I was like, yeah, I was gonna go, but I didn't have time. I didn't have time. Okay. So notice how this blends together. And I was like, I was going to go, but I didn't have time. So if I'm just speaking directly to him, I don't have this. This is me telling the story to you, okay? But if I'm just talking with him, so someone says to me, weren't you going to go shopping? Oh, I was going to go. So I had a plan to do that. I was going to go, but I didn't have time. All right? I was going to go, but I didn't have time. All right? So yes, Bridget says, yes, Drew, you're speaking a different language. Yes, so notice again, when we think about different languages, if we had to describe different languages, we're describing different words, probably different speeches, like different ways of speaking, different pronunciations, different accents, and different speeds. So we're really describing two different languages. And remember, I don't always speak like this. I change my speech depending on the person I'm speaking with. So if I'm speaking with people who might not understand lots of faster English or blended speech like this, then I will not use that faster English. But if I'm speaking with people who do know that, so natives or anyone who just is fluent in the language that can understand this speech, then I will use that because I speak quickly often and I have like a lot of things I want to say and I start speaking faster. So even in these videos, sometimes I want to start speaking a lot and I start talking about many things, but I have to control myself and make sure I'm not being confusing or hard to understand. All right, so let's go through this again. I'll just read this a few times. I'm going to I'll try this in a different way, just reading it normally, and then we'll get a little bit faster here. So he said, weren't you going to go shopping? He said, weren't you going to go shopping? And I was like, I was going to go, but I didn't have time. And I was like, I was going to go, but I didn't have time. So he said, weren't you going to go shopping? He said, weren't you going to go shopping? And I was like, I was going to go, but I didn't have time. I was going to go, but I didn't have time. All right, a little bit faster now. He said, weren't you going to go shopping? So now we're switching from weren't you going to go shopping to weren't you gonna go shopping? Weren't you gonna go shopping? You've probably heard this lesson many times, like using the word gonna or wanna or have to. So he said, weren't you gonna go shopping? And I was like, I was gonna go shopping, or I was gonna go, but I didn't have time. I was gonna go, like I was gonna go shopping, but I didn't have time. I was gonna go, so we already know like we're talking about shopping, so I don't have to say that. So I was gonna go, but I didn't have time. Okay? Now in a regular conversation, there are many ways to say this. I could just say, he said, weren't you gonna go shopping? And I was like, I didn't have time. I could just say that. That's fine. I don't have to say like I was going to go, but I didn't have time. I could say that, but there are many ways to say this, but this is just, it's basically what I said in the conversation. So he said, weren't you going to go shopping? 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 So even if I say it slowly, it still sounds like native, blended, smooth speech. Weren't you going to go shopping? Weren't you going to go shopping? And I was like, I was gonna go, but I didn't have time. But I ain't have time. So it's a little bit different from I ain't. A-I-N-T. So let me write this more clearly for you. A-I-N-T. I ain't. I ain't have time. So it kind of sounds like that, but it's more like I didn't have time. So instead of I ain't have time. Usually if you hear people with the ain't, the A it's much more It's more obvious. It's stronger. Yeah, I ain't have time. I ain't have time. I ain't have time for that. I ain't have time for that. But I didn't say ain't. I said n't. Yeah, I ain't have time. I ain't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I ain't have time. Okay? But notice again, even the T is basically disappeared. It's basically gone. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. All right? So if we write this out as one thing, I didn't have time. I didn't have time. I didn't have time. Now, I don't want you to listen to this and then try to sound exactly like me with these particular sounds. This is not how native speakers learn the language. Now, remember that when natives are learning, they begin with speech and then they learn writing. So young children are speaking a lot and they only learn later actually how to say things or write them correctly. So like a child might say like, yeah, I didn't have time. I didn't have time. So they might say that, but they don't learn until they start writing the language like, oh, I didn't have time. That's like how you actually say that. Okay? So I didn't have time. 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 Okay, before I go on to another example, let me know if you have any questions about this. I will check chat here. Okay, let's see. I think, okay, I got those already. Keiko says, but in my case, I inevitably avoid English that is uncomfortable for me. Yes, that's a common thing for many people. Many people, and not just English, people avoid things they don't like. That makes sense. All right, Natalie, thank you for your advice. I appreciate your efforts with us. Yes, it's my pleasure. Joe Dillon says, hi, sir, from Hong Kong. Thank you for patiently teaching us. It's my pleasure. So I know what it's like to learn. I don't really have a teacher for Japanese. I've seen some YouTube videos about different things, but there's a lot of, I guess I haven't really found anything I really like that teaches the way I teach. But if I can find someone who teaches, basically I just watch actual Japanese content for Japanese people to learn the language. So I'm getting some things, but it's mostly like lots of exposure to this. So if I hear lots of examples of native Japanese, then I will get used to native Japanese. And my pronunciation will improve, my listening will improve. All right, so I thought you were going to go shopping. Yes, I think people get it. Good work, Eunice. Sabir says, I'm watching your videos from last 2 months. This is the first time watching live. Welcome to the program, Tiberius. I drew greetings from Honduras. My father and I have been watching your videos for 4 years. Wow. Well, hello to your dad. Hopefully you are enjoying and improving. All right, Jeremy says, hi. And again, I do make sentences, says Sabir, using incomplete. You would mean incomplete phrases. It's a good way to get fluent, right? For example, as a result, and the sentence is, I told you to study and you didn't. As a result, you failed in the exam. You mean you're learning like phrases? Yes, I mean if you're basically learning the pieces of conversational speech, and yes, you would learn it that way. You would kind of understand how these pieces work, and then you can start using them in different things. So as a result, you should improve your English. Okay, so as a result of learning this way, you should improve your English. All right, Bridget said, Drew, you're speaking a different language. Glad that Keiko says, I'd like to use polite English as an adult, but sometimes I use childish or very rude English, even if I don't mean to. That's my problem. Yeah, I know that happens sometimes. Like for me, when I'm speaking Japanese, I can be kind of too casual with my Japanese as well. I have to remember, but it will come out. Like I remember speaking years ago with I don't know. He was like a government person here in Nagasaki, and what did I say? I was like, shatta tori desu ne. Like I just like naturally trying to speak a bit more polite rather than sono tori or whatever, the way I would say it casually. But because I don't spend a lot of time speaking kind of professionally with people, then I just that kind of casual speech will come out. But Japanese people are usually very kind about that so that they won't be mad at me. They don't expect me to speak well, so it's nice if I can speak better. But and it says, hello, Drew, a little bit late, but willing to learn something. Glad to hear it. All right, learn accuracy first and speed will come naturally. Yes, so that's a good idea. And again, like the way we structure lessons in Fluent for Life, or even what I'm doing here, I wanted to give you the faster speech first rather than tell you what it means, because this is what it's like in real life. You don't know how people are going to communicate, and it's much easier if you can listen to like a teacher explain something first to prepare yourself for that, and then you hear it in the real world, and it's much easier. So we organize the lessons in that way. But again, you should be paying attention for things like this as you listen to a lot of native speech. All right, football videos, what is your advice? I have a problem in spelling and speaking. You should download Frederick. You can click on the link in the description below this video. That's for improving your listening, spelling, reading, even writing. It could improve that. We don't do writing in the program, but you will see how letters actually work, and you can create your own words in that. But if you want to become a better speller and speaker, then get the app. Money class, I've heard it isn't true a teacher use ain't. Is it true? Well, some people use ain't. I mean, you wouldn't want to teach that, but it's part of the language. People will hear it, and so I don't have a like. I teach the kinds of things that my students want to learn, and so some people want to watch movies, and you might hear the word ain't. You know, it's a common word. It might not be correct. Don't use that in your writing. Like I ain't hear that, or something. Like I did not hear that would be the correct English. But in casual speech and in movies, you'll certainly hear that sometimes. So don't feel bad about that. All right, let's see. Abraham says, I have a lot of vocabulary, but I couldn't build a right sentence. Yes, so this is another common issue people have, and usually the reason is because even if you know a lot of English, you don't know it well enough to combine those sentences into fluent speech. So you can have a big vocabulary, but not really feel very confident. Typically there are doubts about the language, and that's what stops you from speaking. Okay. All right. Shamika from Sri Lanka. Sabir, you said once we should listen to the same thing from different speakers. How does it help us? Well, there are different ways. This is what I call naturally varied review, and there are many examples of it. But the point is that here I'll just erase this. Okay. When you learn, if you imagine a child born with one parent, just imagine that, like maybe the boy's, I don't know, a child is born, a little boy here, and only his mother is around. If she speaks to him and she is the only person to speak with that child, then this child will start sounding a lot like his mother. He will think like that's how the language works. He might even have a higher voice because that's how he sounds. But as soon as you introduce another person here that starts giving him examples, and now suddenly, wow, like the child is surprised because they hear a completely different kind of speech. And if you only, like if your world is only you and one other person, then just listen to that person speak. But for most people, like me, I live in Nagasaki, Japan, and I'm going to hear lots of different people. Some people speak clearly, some people do not. Some people speak fast and others speak slowly. So I have to get used to lots of different people speaking. And so there are different ways that you can practice with this. So one way is to listen to the same person saying different things. Okay, so an example of that is like watching these videos with me. So I don't say exactly the same thing in every video. So you're hearing different words, but sometimes I'm saying the same words, or it could be saying things in a different way. So that's one way to improve your listening. Just like a child here listening each day to his mother say something different. Some things might be the same. She says, oh, time for dinner, time for dinner, time for dinner, time for dinner. She might say that same thing again and again, or she might say it in a slightly different way, like maybe an angry way, like it's time for dinner, time for dinner. Okay, or a more positive way. So she's saying like, "Oh, time for dinner. Time for dinner." Okay, so as you get more exposure to even one person saying something, you will improve your listening and you will get used to that person speaking. Okay, but if you want to actually hear lots of different people, so if you want to watch movies and understand people on television or blogs or podcasts or whatever, radio, so you should be listening to lots of different examples. And again, just like we can have one person saying different things, we can have different people say the same thing. Okay, so maybe we have a band or there's a popular song that different bands will sing. And so you can hear how they sing that a little bit, in a different way. So each person's voice is unique. But if you want to be prepared for the way natives really sound, then you need to have lots of exposure to different people speaking. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life. So a regular, like a typical English class, or like even watching YouTube videos like this, people might have their favorite teacher that they watch, but I recommend you listen to lots of different people. But not many like teachers. Just find actual native content that you can listen to that will give you exposure to real native speakers. Okay, so if you listen to me talking about something and you hear me explaining something, then you take that and then go find some actual natives talking about that same thing, whatever that is. But this is how, again, what I call naturally varied review. Naturally varied review. So if you just hear the same thing from the same person over and over and over again, if I just repeat something one way and I repeat that again and again and again, you're not really improving your listening. You're getting very good at hearing one thing I'm saying. But if you want to be a good all-around listener and speaker, you need to get exposure to lots of different people. Okay, this makes sense. Like if you want to become good at golf, you have to go to the golf, I don't know, what do they call it? Like the driving range or the golf course or something. You have to spend time doing that thing. Okay, so in language learning, the thing is you don't have to spend a lot of time speaking, but you should spend a lot of time getting examples from all of these different speakers. Okay, I know that's kind of a long answer to that question, but this is a common question I get. All right, so if you understand some people but don't understand lots of them, or you understand English teachers but you have trouble understanding natives, that's the reason. Okay, so it's a different kind of speech. So you should, if you only listen to one teacher, you are going to sound like that teacher. So I know people here in Japan who take private lessons with somebody for years, but can't really have good conversations with anybody else. All right, so like remember, if you spend time with one person, and people ask me for one-on-one lessons, and I say, you would probably learn a lot, but you actually become fluent much faster if you get exposure to different people. So not just me, lots of different people. Okay. All right, let's see if we have... All right, C. John, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hi, Drew. I want to know what the best way to learn very quickly as a native speaker. So it's what I just described. So how you learn is how you speak. Just think about it that way. How you learn is how you speak. So if you spend time listening to natives and you can understand what they say, don't just listen to random English that you don't understand. Like you should understand what you're learning, and then you will naturally discover that you can speak the language. So as you understand it better, you will be able to speak about it too. All right, Bruce says, hello, Drew. Glad to catch up again. I still have in mind Fluency Bits series. You changed my way of learning. Glad to hear it. Yep, we also cover Fluency Bits, English Fluency Bits in Fluent for Life. Hello, I am from Korea. I gained confidence in English after taking your class. Thank you. Glad to hear it. Yeah, it's my pleasure. If you know other people we can help, let them know. So what I do, I should say it works for everybody. People don't want to hear that, but it basically does. And if you listen to lots of understandable English, of course you would improve. I don't see how you would not improve if you did that. And so it's really the understanding that gives us the confidence to speak. So if you don't really understand something very well, you won't feel confident speaking. That's the problem. There's some kind of doubt there that stops people from speaking. But once you understand, you feel more confident, then you speak. So it's a very obvious, easy thing. All right, I'm on a class again. Thanks. Save says, yo, oh, yo. Eunice says, my reaction hearing British the first time. Yes. So especially if you hear maybe only American English or Australian English or whatever, and then you go to a different place, it can be a little bit shocking. Oh, that's interesting. There's a whole different way of speaking that different people have. All right, go again. I see. Hi, Drew. Does talking to yourself out loud by imagining situations good method to improve my fluency? So does talking to yourself by imagining situations improve? So you would say, or does talking to yourself by imagining situations improve? All right, like the grammar is incorrect in what you're saying. That's kind of tripping me up a little bit. But you're asking if you should talk to yourself. You can, but remember, like when you, I want to make this point clear for people as well. When you're listening, and you're like right now, you're just listening to me. You're not speaking. Maybe you're trying to repeat after me. That's okay. But as I'm saying things to you and I'm trying to explain the language and make it understandable, you're improving. So as you listen, you're improving. Now, as soon as you stop listening, like the improvement usually will stop. So if you listen to a lesson for 5 minutes and then you stop, then you're probably not going to make any more improvement because the improvement actually comes from the input going into you. You can think about it almost like a balloon that you're blowing up. So if you keep blowing up the balloon, it will like continue to grow bigger and bigger like that. But if you stop blowing, then the balloon stays the same length or the same size. So as you try to speak, now you're kind of just at this level. So you will learn something and then try to use that. You can try to repeat that thing to yourself and you will basically stay at the same level until you get some more input and then start improving some more. Okay? So you can, there's not much like value in that. You can practice a little bit. Like if I'm listening to something just so like yesterday I was listening to a Japanese song, just hearing it a couple of times and looking at the lyrics to the song. And in that case, like I'm actually continuing to improve because I'm not trying to sing the song or do anything. I'm just spending more time improving by getting more input. So you could speak if you want to, but for me, like if I have a certain amount of time, I'd rather just get more input. I'd rather have more people telling me things and explaining things to me, and that's what's going to get me fluent faster. Okay? So if you think about little kids sitting in school, actually like they get a lot of value from hearing the teacher and then hearing their friends. And of course they talk with each other, but when you speak, it's typically just information you already know. So you're kind of moving sideways like this. You get improvement as you learn more, and that learning usually comes from you understanding new information. Okay, so that's why we're usually interested in new information. We talk with people and we say, what's new? So if you see a friend, you have not seen your friend in a while, hey, what's new? We don't ask them, hey, what's old? We say, what's new? We want to know what's new. What's the new thing that's happening over here? So we are naturally attracted to more information and we enjoy learning new things. So we want to figure out something or we watch a new TV show or learn new vocabulary or whatever. But you improve more as you understand that better. So I want to make it clear this is not just about trying to listen to people a lot, but you don't really understand the vocabulary well or you don't feel more confident. So if you just keep trying to learn more words, but you don't really understand them, that's going to be a waste of your time also. So speaking to yourself, it can be helpful, but it's just less helpful than getting more input from people. Okay, so I'm not going to really improve my Japanese by repeating things to myself. I am going to improve my Japanese faster if I listen to other people teaching me new things and I am able to understand what they say. So when I learn something new, typically a conversation, I'm learning from what the other person says to me, not me repeating things I already know. So it doesn't matter if I'm speaking to myself or if I'm speaking to other people. I'm not really improving. I'm basically staying at the same level. Okay? So just to make this a bit more clear, you can think about time like this. So as you take some time and you learn, and then I'm not learning right here. I'm just kind of trying to say something to myself. So time is passing, but I'm not really improving very much. I may improve a little bit, but most of the improvement comes as I understand the language better. So most people, they kind of improve in this way. But the faster, if you could spend a lot of time just getting input, you would improve really quickly, and then you would just be able to speak because you understand the language so well. So me, like a perfect example of this, over the weekend, I went to Fukuoka, so just another city in Japan. And in my daily life here in Nagasaki, I don't really speak much. I don't speak much English either. I don't speak much Japanese. I don't speak much English either. But I do spend a lot of time learning. So I'm like listening to things, like it could be some music or maybe watching a Japanese TV show or something like that, or it could be reading a book. But I'm getting lots of information, and I'm trying to do that strategically so I really understand something. I don't care about learning a whole bunch of words, but every day I try to learn something a little bit better, understand some kind of new vocabulary better. And because I spend a lot of my time doing this, when I went to Fukuoka over the weekend, and of course we have our siren as we usually do, when I went to Fukuoka, and I went to restaurants with people, and I met some new people, and I'm talking with like people that own restaurants or just other people like walking around. I started speaking a lot, and it's kind of like the balloon was just getting bigger and bigger, and now I can just start speaking to people. Okay, so I don't become like a better speaker by trying to talk to myself. I become a better speaker by understanding the language better, and then when I have the chance to speak, the words just come out because I know them well. So I don't feel shy about speaking because I have confidence. There's no doubt about what I'm going to say. Now, I might not speak perfectly, that's okay, but in general, I don't really have doubts about what I'm saying in Japanese. All right? So that's why I can go to a restaurant or a bar or something and talk for 2 hours with people, even though I don't do much talking during the day. Okay? So me improving, I don't have to be with other people to improve. All right? It's like you're kind of saving this, and you're building up your ability to speak by understanding the language better. Okay, so don't worry about trying to I gotta practice. You can just try to think about it logically, like how would that really help me? If I take something I already know and just repeat that, it's like if I know how to tie my shoes. Like, okay, do I need to practice tying my shoes again? Is that really going to help me? Probably not. Maybe I could get really good at tying my shoes again, but I already know how to tie my shoes. I don't need to do that again. I want to learn something new. Like here's how maybe I even tie my shoes in a different way or something. I don't know. But in general, we learn something, we understand it, and we don't need to practice that thing again. We're really trying to do something else. Okay? And again, the reason we do this, especially for language learning, is that real communication is different from practicing a regular skill. So if I'm trying to learn to play the guitar or an instrument or something like that, then I should practice that thing again and again. So I'm trying to play the music, there's a song, it's specific notes at a specific time, and I'm doing those things. Or if I'm learning to play a sport like swing a golf club or something, like the ball is there and it's just me, and I'm trying to get my body used to doing that thing. But in communication, I don't know what the other person is going to say. So I should be prepared for lots of different things. So it's much better for me to just spend all my time preparing, and then when the conversation happens, I can communicate. Okay? So if I spend a lot of time studying, I will easily find ways to communicate. I will find some way to express something because there are usually many ways to express something. Okay, I'm sorry this is a long, a long explanation about this, but I promise you, if you spend more time understanding the language, you will be a better speaker. You will surprise yourself with how much better of a speaker you become just because you understand the language better. So your mind will do a lot of that work for you as you're listening to more examples, getting more exposure to native speech. All right, where do we get stuck here? All right, Junie 2. Oh my God, scratch on the wall for studying. Okay, I will enjoy. Nicholas says it's really hard to understand the structure of English. All right, Nicholas, I would take time and focus on a particular thing. So don't think about the structure of English. Think about the structure of a particular phrase or something, and then build on that. So once you understand how something works, then make that sentence a little bit longer or change that thing slightly. But it's actually not very complicated if you make the problem smaller. I was just like talking to my kids about this. How do you eat a whale? How do you eat a whale? How do you eat How do you eat a whale? One piece at a time. How do you eat a whale? One piece at a time. So if you just talk about, wow, that's a whale. That's a really big thing. How can I eat all that? Well, you just take one bite at a time and you will finish that whale at some point. So the same thing with English. If you say, wow, English is crazy, English is confusing, I guess, but it's not confusing if you just pick one small thing, one small piece of it, and understand that. Just get lots of examples and the language will become much more clear, and then you can build off of that. So usually when I'm looking at these comments, there are lots of more advanced words in there, but the basic vocabulary is often incorrect. So people think they know the language, but they don't really. Okay, so that's why they lack confidence when they speak, because they're uncertain about certain things, is the grammar correct or whatever, and that's what causes them to struggle to speak. Stephen says, man, my mistake more big is when read any text or book and I don't understand one word. I don't understand all sentences. Please help me. Stephen, read something smaller and easier for a lower level. All right. If I take like a Japanese novel and try to read that before I know all of the characters and all, it's going to be really difficult for me to read that, like physically read it. So it's much better if I find something that's going to be fun and easier for me to read, and then I can easily kind of level up my ability from there. DeTrekelin says, hello, sir. For the last few months, I teach English for kids and junior high school in my free time on Saturday. Could you tell me the best method for a teenager? Thank you, sir. Well, I don't have a different method for different people. It's more, you just try to make the language understandable all in English. Well, I have a video about how to teach English in English. Just watch that video. But I teach English the same way. It doesn't matter if I'm talking with my native kids or members of Fluent for Life. I'm teaching them English in English because that's what helps you speak. Aaron says, hi, sir. Do you have a fixed live stream? Typically, they are like Mondays and Thursdays Japan time, around this time. Rocky, I pronounce some English words with an American accent, but for other words I do with a British. I'm not sure if I'm speaking well. That's interesting. I know some people do that, but just focus on a particular one. Usually people, they're learning a particular accent, like they have to live in America or wherever, but learn the kind of English that you use every day. Then is listening good to improve without pictures or not? I don't want people to think about, all right, here's a better way to think about this idea. So people will often ask me about different ways of learning English. So they will say like listen, or read, or watch, or whatever. So they're asking me, what should they do? And the reality, so the truth is, the goal is really understanding. To understand something well. And you could understand something by listening, So by hearing it or by reading it or by watching something. But the point is like when I teach lessons, that's why I draw stuff on the board so people can see what I'm talking about. Or I show videos of different actions happening in lessons so that you can see. I want to give you as many ways to understand something as possible. So if you think about a young child learning their native language, they get to hear things and watch things and read things, and they try to write something as well or draw pictures or something. But the goal is understanding, because really we want to remove doubt. So this is what we mean by understanding something. So you're removing doubt. So if you just understand a little bit, you can recognize the information, then you still maybe have some doubt. But when all of the doubt is gone, and maybe you get that from listening or reading or watching or whatever, that's how you improve. So don't think about a specific way of doing it, just think about the goal of understanding something. And really the goal of this is removing doubt. So when you have no doubt, that's when you speak. All right, this is the foundation of everything, really. To remove the doubt is when you start speaking. So when you remove the doubt, you actually understand something like a native, and what I call the fluent communication switch in your brain, it flips on and you feel confident speaking. All right, but until that point, usually you can hear something, you might understand it and recognize it, but you might not feel confident about speaking. Okay, so yes, listening is helpful. And reading is helpful. Watching something is helpful. But the whole point is just to get to understanding, and really to do that as quickly as possible. Okay? So that's the goal. Focus on the goal and not necessarily how you get there. All right. Let's see. So Nicholas again. Tony Robinson. Speak really fast, but I can understand him is because I watched almost every video of him. Tony Robinson. Well, yes, again, like that's a perfect example of spending time with someone. You will get used to their accent and their way of speaking. All right, so Sabir says, instead of listening to podcasts, I've decided to listen to audiobook from different YouTubers. I think it's a good idea. Yes, so if you understand something well, if it's helping you speak better and speaking is your goal, typically the people watching my channel are people who want to speak. So it's not just people who are like learning to, I don't know, maybe to pass a test or something. They actually want to have good communication. So whatever it is you're doing, you have to make sure you're understanding better, and then that's what's going to allow you to speak. Lucas says, what is fluency in your opinion? Well, fluency really in anything just means the ability to do something without trying to think and process that information. So like you brush your teeth fluently in the morning or whatever, whenever you brush your teeth, usually without thinking about it. So you don't have to think like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? I don't need to translate anything. You just, put the toothpaste on and start brushing your teeth. It's pretty easy. And so language learning, you become fluent in something when you just understand it so well, you have no doubt and you use it automatically. Okay. Let's see. And says, maybe we make mistakes when we talk with native speakers because teachers don't teach or never do the comparative between normal and slang. Maybe you mean slang words. Why? Yes. So again, as I said at the beginning of this video, people typically, they will learn only from an English teacher, and that's why they will struggle to understand natives. So they don't get exposure to native, real spoken English. They're listening to kind of fake English dialogues. It's just not how people naturally speak. And so if you don't get that kind of English, then of course you're going to struggle, or probably most likely struggle when you have real people that you need to speak with or listen to. Let's see. All right, looks like Shuangyo. Hello, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's so true. Our red goat says, God, you sir, the other thing is at the moment I'm able to listen and understand hood talks where I find it the hardest English to catch, but I understand the most of it. Is that a good approach? Yeah, like just think about, are you getting closer to your goal by doing whatever technique you think about? So me personally, when I think about improving, it's like, if I try doing something, I should notice some improvement pretty quickly. So is something like a good idea, like if I have to look at two different methods or think about what is a good use of my time, I just think what is the result I get from doing something. So as an example, me learning Japanese characters, I've given this example before, but as I continue to study more kanji, so this is like Japanese characters, if I take a word, like let's say I'm just going to teach you like a kind of some basic kanji like this. So if I take this and just say, okay, I want you to repeat this again and again, I'm going to tell you what it means. It's easier if I can find some kind of story or some way to help you connect with this information, especially because with writing, you can take time to read something or write something. So this is the Japanese character for tree. And so you can imagine it like these are, this could be like the branches of a tree, something like that. And you can imagine, kind of a pictograph like this, and it becomes easier to understand. And when you get that, it's like, that aha moment that comes from understanding something better. And if I can teach something well, it just means I'm able to eliminate the doubt faster. So I could teach you by just saying like, okay, this is the Japanese character for something, just like write it again and again and again, and hopefully you understand it. But it's much better if I actually try to help you understand something well. So whatever you are doing, if you're thinking about a particular method or something like, should I use music or should I read a book or something? Is it actually helping you understand the language better so you speak? Okay? And you should be able to feel that with whatever you're reading. Okay, or listening to or something like that. So for me, like I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts or things like that in Japanese. I guess I could do that, but I'm usually very focused about something I'm trying to learn. So maybe I hear an example on the news or a different TV show about something. I'm trying to think about a recent new word I learned. What did I learn? I don't remember exactly, but typically I hear something like, and often I will hear a different way to use vocabulary I already know. And in that case, I think, ooh, that's interesting. Here's like I know what this word means, but here's a different way of using it, something like that. So typically I will focus on that or try to look for more examples of the way people might use vocabulary. But when this is for everybody watching this video, if you're trying to learn in a particular way, you should feel improvement by knowing that you understand something better. If you feel confused, you should probably stop doing that thing. Okay, so whatever it is you're thinking about, if you try something and it's not really helping you, then don't continue doing that. Lucas says, it's necessary to speak to because you have to exercise the muscles in your mouth. Just listening, you will improve only listening skills. Speaking, you improve the way you speak. Yeah, this is a kind of general idea people have about how like you have to exercise your muscles or make your mouth move in a certain way, like kind of. But if I could take two people, so if we could do a test, just like a science experiment, I take two people. So one person repeats information and speaks a lot. Like they just try to say things. I give them words. Like here, repeat the word bird again and again, like bird, bird, bird. Okay, I get used to saying that. Then I take another person and like I'm not trying to stop them from speaking, but I would say you don't have to speak. Just listen to all of this information and try to understand the language better. So it's not just about listening. The point is to understand the language better. And if I take those two people, I guarantee you the person who was practicing something will probably not become a really good communicator. They might be able to say some words well, but the person who understands the language better will be able to communicate much better. They will be able to use the language well. If they get stuck on one thing, they can easily switch to something else. That's what a good communicator can do. And a good communicator is someone who understands the language well. So yes, like, and I often talk about this, there is, like, if we think about all the time that people spend for language learning, what most people try to do is they learn everything like to a very shallow degree. So they might learn some new vocabulary, they repeat it once or twice and then move on to the next thing. And then they think, okay, so like this is like kind of learning. So learning down here, and now this is going to be speaking time, okay? But what I do with my learners is the opposite. I want them to spend most of their time really understanding, and then the speaking is just very easy after that. So yes, there's a little bit of like mouth movement training or something like that. But if you were going to start teaching me a different language, if I had to learn Arabic or Chinese or something, and I'm just spending most of my time really understanding the language, like I will quickly become a much better speaker. Okay, so you can try to spend more time speaking, but I'm saying most of your time should be really understanding the language better, because the goal is to remove the doubt. If you don't remove the doubt, if you still have questions and concerns or worries, that's what's going to make you shy and stop speaking. Okay, so you can try to practice by yourself, speaking to yourself, the same kind of thing, just like I can speak to myself and review something I already know, but that's not really teaching me anything new. Okay, so I should be spending more time down here, and it's the exact opposite of what most people do for language learning. Okay, so if you want to speak, don't speak. I know this, it's like the opposite of what people say you should do. Like, well, of course, if you want to speak a language, you should speak. And I say, okay, show me how that works. And then they will say, well, you learn something and then try to repeat it again and again. It's like, okay, like if that's helping you. But I have yet to meet a person who followed that strategy and was a good speaker. But I meet, quite a few people actually who do this, where they spend a lot of time just understanding the language well. Maybe they don't realize what they're doing. They're just, I like watching English movies, or, I read a lot of English books or something. And, okay, so they're doing this. They don't spend all of their time talking. They're spending all their time understanding the language better. I want to start clapping. Understand the language better. Okay, I promise you, if you understand the language better, you will speak, and it's a much faster process. Okay, many people, they spend years. How many years have people watching this video been learning English? Put your hand up if you've been learning for 10 years or more. I bet a lot of people have. So people will watch these videos, and I'm trying to save them that trouble. Stop learning that way and just spend more time on one thing, just to prove that I'm correct about this. If you focus on one grammar point or one phrase or something and just get lots of exposure to that thing with naturally varied review, so you don't just repeat it over and over, you hear different people using it in different ways, you will naturally get used to saying that, and you will feel very confident about using it. Okay? That's how it works. So yes, speaking is there, but it's a lot less important than people think. All right, and I promise you, if you experiment with this by yourself, pick one thing, just anything, like pick one phrase or one grammar point and spend a day trying to learn more. Get more examples. Like your mind will be looking for more examples, or you can use ChatGPT or Google or whatever, but get more examples of that thing, and you will feel very confident about using it. Okay, I've got like tons of examples of how this has happened to me in my own language learning process for learning Japanese, and I've told many stories about this in these videos. But it's basically this same process. Spend your time trying to understand the language better, and it doesn't matter how you understand it. Maybe you like watching TV shows or something, whatever makes you understand the language better. But you should feel that as you're learning. So here's this, when will the next live start? Monday, I guess. What day is it today? Thursday, I think. Carlos says, thank you for the explanation. Pato says, hi, Drew. How to deal with the fact that even though you can natively learn new words or expressions, you could forget them easily if you don't use them for some period of time. Well, you don't have to use the language in order to remember it. You can just continue to get examples of it. And typically if we know something really well, we don't forget it that easily. So even, I don't know, words, like English words, I might like forget something sometimes, but most of the time I can remember words I learn. But yeah, like you don't have to speak in order to do that. Just get more examples of that same vocabulary if you feel like you're kind of losing that information. All right, Ivan says, nice. And Tuan says, I come from Vietnam. Can you recommend a source to listen like you, natural English? It's right here on YouTube. Just pick a specific topic you're interested in and watch a bunch of different content about that. I made a video specifically showing how this works on my channel. It's called, what's the name of the video? Like learn how to make espresso. So I picked that topic because I don't know anything about coffee, really. I'm not really a coffee drinker and I don't know anything about espresso. So I made a video about that. And the video just gives examples of different people explaining how to make espresso. And I promise you, if you watch that video, you will learn more about espresso, even if you don't know anything about espresso. All right, we're getting it. I'm not going to be able to give my my other examples over here. All right, let's see. I'll try to get through these quickly over here. How many hours should I practice English every day? Well, as much as you can. But you don't, like, when I talk about practicing English, it just means getting lots of input. So people who are members of Fluent for Life, like if they have lots of time, they can get many more examples in a shorter amount of time or faster. Let's see. All right, I think I got that one. Okay, I got that one. All right. Yeah, so anytime you're learning something, you can, you're basically improving, but you'll feel it. As you learn something, you're like, I got it. Like when you understand something, that's when you can start using it. All right, Rocky says, does fluency include reasoning? For example, I often get stuck with expressing my thoughts both in English or Japanese, my first language. Well, typically, yes. Like if you're able to communicate quickly, then you can, like, that would be communicating fluently. But if you get stuck because you can't think about how to explain something in a rational or reasonable way, then yeah, that would certainly hurt your ability to speak. So you might still be a fluent speaker. Like if you're reading something, you could read it fluently, but maybe you just, and that's not a problem with learning a language, especially if you have the same problem in your native language. But yeah, so it's your ability to speak is many different things working together. So if I know a lot of English, but I don't have a tongue and I can't open my mouth, then that's going to be a problem for me, even if I can understand what people are saying. So yes, like you could have, specific issues that stop you from expressing yourself. Are Americans learning words using root and prefix? Yes, so Americans do that. Any advice for a speaking test? I would get specific advice for particular tests. I focus on communication and conversational fluency, speaking confidence. But if you're looking for specific test prep, I recommend you look more for that. All right, Sage says, I appreciate you are the best. What do you recommend for B1 level? The same thing I recommend for every level. Just get appropriate context or understandable information for your level, basically. That's how you would do it. So pick something, focus on it, make sure you understand that thing really well, and then do the next thing. You just do one thing at a time like that. Ricardo says, hey, it's a pleasure to see you again after a couple of years. It's nice, glad to hear it. I'm from Colombia. I used to see all the time years ago. Learning was successful listening to you. Glad to hear it. If you know other people I can help, send them my way. All right, Manuel with a hand over there. And Namal says, as natives, you're always thinking in local language and then you speak English. But if you think in English and start speaking in English, please comment. Thanks. I don't understand what you're saying exactly. Like I learn in the language, or I speak and think in the language that I'm communicating in. So when I'm speaking in Japanese, I'm thinking in Japanese. And that's because I learn English, or I learn Japanese. I learn Japanese in Japanese, just like I learn English in English. If I translate when I learn, I will translate when I speak. Okay? But if I don't translate when I learn, I don't have to translate when I speak. That's the magic. All right, Lucas says, thanks, Keiko says, I wonder it's good practice to imitate what you were saying in these lessons because you don't read a script now, do you? You are speaking your own thoughts naturally. Yes, so the reason I do these live videos, number one, is because I can answer questions for people. But number two, it's also to give you lots of examples of how someone speaks naturally. So you can repeat after me, but more think about like the pieces of the language I'm using. So often people that have been following me for a long time, they understand many of the patterns I use and some of the vocabulary and the ways I speak. Like I could probably make a video about like, what do I say when I'm surprised, or if I'm trying to explain something, or if I have to think about a different way of expressing something. But I'm trying to give you an example of what fluent speech looks like. So if you're in a conversation with someone, I don't have time to write a script and plan what I want to say. I just have to follow you and then continue to express myself. So if I give you examples of this, it's another good reason why I don't have a script for these videos. I have maybe a general plan for what I want to talk about. Like in this video, I wanted to give more examples of me speaking, but now we're going for 70 minutes, me just answering random questions for people. But that's just kind of how these videos go. So just like in a real conversation, you might plan for something, but you need to really be prepared to communicate for whatever the situation demands. And that's, again, the difference between communication and practicing something like an instrument. So the instrument or the song, it's going to be the same way. It's going to be the same way. It's going to be the same way every time. But in a conversation, just like these live videos, it's different every time. But you'll notice I often get the same kinds of questions from different people. And so I like to answer those just to give another example of how I might respond to something. So often people will say, is it a good idea to do this? And I will say, well, and I explain like how something is a good idea or not a good idea or whatever. But if you watch many of my videos or even watch the same video a few times, you will learn new things each time you do it, I promise you. But most people, again, they only do that shallow level of learning. So they have a shallow level of speaking, okay? If you have a deep level of learning, you have a very deep command of the language, so that when you do have a chance to speak, you express yourself fluently. Now, people should be excited about this. Like I know I was excited when I discovered this because I thought, oh, I can get fluent by myself. I don't need to go find a practice partner or spend a lot of time talking with anybody. I just kind of really get deep into the language, really understand things well, and then I feel confident about speaking. And then when I have the chance to speak, I use the vocabulary fluently because I'm excited to speak. All right. If you're shy, it means you're not yet understanding. Spend more time with the language. So pick something. It could be a phrase or a grammar point, whatever. Something maybe you heard, but you didn't quite understand what it, maybe you didn't understand it very well. Spend more time with that, and then you will feel more confident using it. All right. Let's see. Is practicing speaking with ChatGPT 4 worth like speaking with a native? I've never tried speaking with ChatGPT 4, but I can type things with it, and I've just found ChatGPT to be incorrect about some things, and so I don't really trust ChatGPT to give me like good communication. There's some basic things it can do, but if you're doing that, pay attention to what it's saying to you and ask for more details and more examples about like, hey, ChatGPT, could you tell me something in a different way? Like explain how something works. Now explain it again in a slightly different way, or explain it again to like a fourth grader, or explain it again to a college student. And I would spend time with ChatGPT in that way. Just the only thing is I wouldn't know if it was correct. So I would still feel a little bit, nervous about, am I learning the right thing? And that's why I would prefer to use something like a bunch of examples in YouTube talking about something. So how to make lemonade, okay? Just take something very simple, or how to plant a tree. And you type that in English and you will get a bunch of videos where people are talking about that. And you get to see it's even better than ChatGPT. Number one, it's real speech, real variety, okay? You're getting that naturally varied review. It's preparing you for how people really speak. And I can listen to like how to plant a tree in England, or if I'm looking for like British English, how to plant a tree, and then American English, how to plant a tree, I will get those different examples from people. So ChatGPT is another thing where it's kind of like getting examples from one teacher or one source. All right, so you want to make sure like ChatGPT is just, it's another way of getting some practice. All right, let's see. Ready to go again. Interesting. So at the level of understanding most of what I hear, you recommend me to go through what I want to know specifically, for example, how to talk about secrets or a day off in English. Yes, but I would just watch people, just watch natives doing that. Like, don't go looking for English lessons about that. Like, actually watch a video of somebody talking about that. Like, and YouTube is filled with lots of videos about that kind of thing. Okay, so like right there, I just gave you an example of some native English just as like an example. It's like YouTube is filled with lots of examples. Like, it just means there are a lot of those things in that. And so when you're learning something and you see lots of different examples of that, like what did I do today, or describing my day, so you can get people talking about what they do, and just see what they do and how they do that. Like, well, I got up at this time, but another person says, well, I woke up at this time. Another person says, I got out of bed at this time. Or, whatever. They explain things in different ways. But as you get all of these different things, you will naturally feel yourself understanding more, feeling more confident, and able to use those things in your conversations. All right, let's see. Hi from Turkmenistan. Absolutely agree. I personally noticed that when in bars I have conversations with ends in 25 minutes, I feel so exhausted and bored of speaking because by the end of it, I consume all my vocabulary. Yes, and so like a native speaker, you could actually have a challenge. If it were possible, you could actually simulate this with ChatGPT. But if I give ChatGPT a list and I say, here are 100 words, like, write me a story using only those 100 words. And ChatGPT, because it knows the language well, I mean, it's basically like programmed to do that. But because ChatGPT knows the language well, it can take those words and turn that into all kinds of different stories. Or it could, talk for hours about something. Okay, so it's not the number of words you know, it's how well do you use that vocabulary. And people who know the vocabulary very well can use that vocabulary very well. Okay, so I can take a word and express something in a different way, or I can make a pun, like a joke, because I know one expression and then I am able to use that same word for a different context or with a different speaker or something like that. Okay, so the size of your vocabulary is not very important. It's how well do you know that vocabulary. Okay, I will repeat this over and over and over for as long as I teach. And again, this is that same kind of thing. So people have a large vocabulary but don't know it very well. So they try to practice speaking by themselves and they don't really feel confident, so they don't get into conversations. Okay, that's usually what happens to people. The opposite is to get something, even a few words, really know them well, and then you will feel very confident about using them when the opportunity happens. Okay, so when you have the chance to speak, you'll feel confident about using the language. Okay, let me see if I can, I'm trying to get through these. All right, Zam says, hi, thanks so much for answering all the questions patiently. Could you please explain a little bit about Fluent for Life? How does it work? Sure. So very quickly, for people, people often ask me what the difference is between Fluent for Life and these YouTube videos. Usually what I'm doing in these videos is I assume there will be new people watching each one of these videos. So I don't know, a lot of people do watch them again and again, but the basic idea is to welcome new people and to explain to people how they should be getting fluent. So it's understanding the principles of fluency, and I give examples of vocabulary to help you understand things. But most of it is just like, here's things that you might believe about fluency. I'm going to tell you a different way to think about fluency, and you can try that, experiment with that yourself, and see if I'm right. I think I am. I've proven that many times, but I always want people to prove that for themselves. Don't just believe what I'm saying, go actually try it. But anyway, the basic difference there, again, what these YouTube videos are, it's kind of teaching the principles about fluency or how to get fluent faster. And then Fluent for Life actually takes you through the training of making you understand the language very well. So we remove the doubt. That's the whole point of the program, to make you speak. All right. So if you if you, like some people, they don't join the program and they just use my training or my ideas and just get fluent by themselves. And that's fine. If you want to do that, like you don't have to do that. It's like if I have a cooking show, I'm teaching people how to make certain ingredients or make certain dishes or something. But if you just want to come to my restaurant, I'll just cook it for you. And so you have like the delicious meal all there, and I just get you fluent automatically without you having to go and search for lots of content and organize it the right way and get lots of examples of different people speaking and all of those things that you need to speak. So if you just want that already done for you, Fluent for Life is really for people who care more about time than money. So it's not a free program, and it's not really a cheap, I mean, I guess it depends. It's actually a very valuable program for people who need to speak for their life. That's the whole point. It's called Fluent for Life, like, because being able to communicate, it usually is a very important thing, especially if you need English for communication in professional life. So there's actually like a dollar value there if you can get a higher paying job or whatever because you speak, and then you just continue to get the benefits of fluency for the rest of your life. But that's the basic idea. So if you want to take the ideas, like you see people commenting about how they, either joined my programs or did not, but they still benefited from what I'm doing because I'm just helping them understand the language better. All right. So if you want to have someone do that for you, like you just know every day I'm going to do this, there's a specific thing you do. It's very easy. You're either like listening to something or watching or whatever, but the point is to understand the language better, and then you start naturally speaking better. That's how it works. All right. So you don't need to spend a lot of time practicing. We do show you how to do that in the program, like how to meet native speakers if you want to do that. But most of the program is this. It's just helping you understand the vocabulary better so you speak fluently. Okay, pretty simple. All right, but if you have more specific questions, you can always send us a mail at info@inglishanyone.com or just comment down below here. But typically people, if you click on the link in the description below this video, you will learn more about the program. But the basic idea is just we're trying to eliminate doubt you have about speaking so that you feel confident and express yourself. All right, let's see. Ricardo again, Hydra, always recommend friends of mine to see your YouTube channel. It is the best. Glad to hear it. And Colias is good morning from Indonesia. See, John again, I had a question. What should I do to practice pronunciations to get better? Again, listen to lots of examples of how natives speak. So pick a particular sound or word or something and listen to lots of people saying that. I've recommended this before, Youglish.com. So Youglish.com is a good way to get lots of exposure to the same word spoken by different people. So it's good. Youglish is good if you already know what you're looking for, or if you want to hear the pronunciation of a particular word, but from different speakers. And that's always a good way to improve your pronunciation. So remember, like you might like the sound of my voice or somebody else, like you want to sound like an actor or somebody famous or whatever. But each person has their own unique speaking voice. So I want you to find that for yourself in English. So everybody has a unique English speaking voice, and your voice and your mouth, or it's going to be different from mine. So if you listen to many different people, you will find that natural speaking voice for yourself. All right, so you will not just listen to me, but listen to many different people. Again, this is what we do in Fluent for Life. We're trying to give you exposure to lots of different people. Also, if you want to learn the other part of that, is learning the individual pieces of English words. So if we take a word like cat, you learn the individual sounds of these. This is what we teach in Frederick. So that's the app we have. If you click on the link in the description below this video, you can get that as well. So we teach you the individual. Basically, you teach yourself. You discover how these sounds work the same way native English children do. So k, at, cat. So you're learning the pronunciation, and then you learn, oh, if I have a different letter over here like E, k, ate. And that's a silent E. Kate. So you learn the rules for pronunciation by understanding how the rules of the letters work. All right, so that's what we teach you in Frederick. All right, Lucas again, what about if I want to become an interpreter or translator, I have to learn the word translating to my native language, right? Not necessarily. You would become a good translator if you understand something like, I'm kind of learning these things independently. So if I know what the word is, like if I have like this word here, and I learn it in English as marker. I know what that is. And then in Japanese, I'm in a class or I see someone talking about it and they say maka. Oh, okay, that's like it's similar. It's like marker and maka. Then I just like I can translate that easily. I'm not learning the Japanese through the English though. I'm learning it directly in both cases. All right, just to be clear about that. So this is me, and I'm learning like the English word for an object, and then I'm like learning the Japanese way to express that as well. Okay, so then in my mind, it's very easy to use both because I know both fluently. So I don't need to translate from one to the other. I can just use one or the other. Okay, so typically when you're translating people who are really good at both languages, it's very easy to do the kind of translation that way. But you didn't learn through the translations. That's the important part. So it's not like one is really better than the other. You're just learning it in that language. All right, and that's the way I'm learning translation memorize, because when I'm reading, the word appears that I don't know, and I underline these words at the end. I check the translation in my native language. Yes, I recommend you do not do that. Again, if you learn through translations, it's going to slow you down even if you want to be a translator, because you're kind of giving yourself an extra step of thinking instead of just learning the word, like here's the word for like snow or something. So I know the word for snow in English, and then like, I come to Japan and I hear like, like that same thing is yuki. And okay, that's interesting. Like I see it. I didn't learn it through a translation, so I'm not going like this to this. And then that's an extra step when I have to think about it. It's just, I can do that thing directly. Okay. So remember, how you learn is how you speak. We want to spend more time trying to understand the things in the language itself. All right, Tom, again, you're late. Oh, no, it's all right. Namaz is, I correct my comment now. As local people, when you speak first, you must think in English and speak English. Yes, so probably like if you say I correct my comment now, you should say like I corrected my comment now. So that's another example of a basic error. Like even though you have like higher level vocabulary, like a child wouldn't make that mistake. All right, so I'm not saying there's anything bad about you. This is just the way most people learn. Teachers are really trying to prepare you for tests as quickly as possible. So they just say, okay, we're going to try to learn a lot of information. You won't really remember it or be able to use it. You won't be able to use it fluently in communication, but you can probably remember it for a test. So that's why most people teach this way. So this way, what I'm talking about, it's not like, I call it a secret because like most students don't know about it and they don't really know it's possible to learn English in English or to learn Japanese in Japanese or whatever, because most people are learning languages in school as kids like this. Okay, but it is possible to do it. It's actually quite easy with help. All right, Ahmad says, I see you are speaking about anything with little few words without using any advanced or sophisticated words. How can I achieve that like you? Again, that's like a perfect question for this video. That's your answer right there. Okay, so he's saying, wow, like Drew is able to speak using a lot of basically simple words without trying to express anything in a complicated way. And that's because I know the words well. Okay, I can take a limited vocabulary and weave that together to make lots of interesting things. I could tell a story about anything in a simple way or in a complicated way or with like advanced vocabulary or whatever. But the point is, I know that vocabulary very well, so I'm able to use that vocabulary well. All right, it's not a secret what I'm doing, but like I try to keep everything very simple so you can understand what I say. But I'm just, and again, like the point of these videos is to show you, to give you an actual example of someone speaking fluently. When you watch a lot of English like learning videos, it's like a prepared video that people don't really speak like that. So I want to give you the bigger picture of how people really speak. Okay. Let's see, are we almost finished? I wanted to give you like we've gone for 90 minutes. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's see. W. Drew, 100%. Okay, Keiko says, you are always helpful in answering my questions. Thank you very much. Was my English polite today? Yes. Very good. How to crack O-E-T. I don't know what that means. Could you make us part of your videos to read us stories and explain to us in your way? Well, that's already done. You can go right here on YouTube and find people reading stories or talking about that to kids. You don't need me for this. My goal and my purpose here is to help you understand how language learning really works, because most of the ideas that people have about learning are stopping them from speaking. People think I need to spend a lot of time learning as much as I can, and then I need to try to force myself to speak. That's what people think they need to do, because everyone says that. Everyone says you have to speak. Okay, that's how we get fluent. And I'm telling you, no, it's actually like this. And you can test this for yourself. Most of the people who've been watching my videos, they find my content because they've already been trying this for years and they still can't speak. But once they start doing this, like, oh wow, I can actually understand what I'm saying. The language makes sense to me. I feel confident using it. So that's how you do it. So I don't spend a lot of my time trying to teach people a lot of advanced vocabulary, even though that's what most people want to do. Now, this is probably why my channel is like not, I mean, I guess it's a little bit popular, but not as popular as other channels that just teach a lot of vocabulary. So I am focused on this specific problem of how to help people speak, all right? And you speak when you understand something really well, all right? It's really that simple. And you understand things when you've like reviewed them many times, you heard a lot of people talking about them, you really feel confident that you'll express yourself well. That's when you speak. Let's see. And M.I. Chen says, why it's more difficult to speak without translation, but it's more easy to listen without translation. Because speaking is more difficult than listening. That's the basic idea. So when you're learning things, it's very easy to get exposed to lots of different language, and you can understand things to a lower level. But when you speak, you have to understand them better, so you feel confident about using them. Okay? So that's the difference. That's why you can typically speak or understand better than you can speak. And lots of people make videos. People are still making videos about this problem. But it's just like your level of understanding is here when you listen, but your level of understanding needs to be up here. There's a short video I released maybe last week on the channel about this specific idea, about removing doubt and understanding the language better. That's why people don't speak. Let's see. Hello, test. Hello, Eklund. Could you explain naturally varied review again? How does one practice it to become fluent speaker in English? So again, the idea of naturally varied review means you're getting, instead of just repeating something or hearing one person say the same thing again and again, the whole goal of understanding a language is really that you feel confident that you know it really well, not just that you kind of recognize it. So you need to really understand something well. And I'll give you one example I've given you. If you go back and watch this video, you will see more examples of naturally varied review. But this is a simple example that I gave to a friend of mine who is a native speaker, and I was explaining to him this idea of naturally varied review. So if you have seen this before, don't tell the answer. All right, but this is the example I gave to him. So I said, I'm going to teach you a new language, or teach you like a new word. This is not an English word. I'm just going to make up a word. And here we go. So I'm going to teach you. So the word is, we'll just say blah. So the word is blah. This is not a real word in English, but I'm going to teach you a word in, we'll just call this an alien language. All right, here we go. All right, so this is blah. I show you this picture and I say blah. Now, what do you think that means? What is a blah? Just post in the comment whatever you think a blah is. I wanted to do this quickly. Let me take a drink of water. I didn't think we would be going this long today. Oh my goodness, almost 100 minutes. Oh my goodness. Ice skate. Yes, and this is also like it's not really the clearest picture. So part of the ski shoe. Yeah, so I mean, you can't really tell. It looks like some kind of, so talking about skiing or ice skating or something like that, you don't really know for sure. Or winter, I could be talking about something else. You don't really know, okay? So if I teach you this, and I just say, okay, I want you to go home and repeat this word again and again. You have your flashcard and we will repeat blah, 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 blah. But when we get into a conversation, you probably won't feel confident using it because you're not really 100% sure that you know what I'm talking about. All right? So just because my image is not very clear, that's also part of the problem. But that's why when I'm teaching, we give multiple examples. We want to give naturally varied review. We want to give you different examples of things to really help you understand what vocabulary means. So again, I'm going to use the same word because I'm still teaching you the meaning of only one word. Okay? Blah. Okay, now what does blah mean? What do you think? Blah. 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 What do you think? A shirt? Blah. What does that word mean? I really don't know. I'll give you another example. Blah. 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 Give you another example. Let's see here. Blah. 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 But you notice as I'm giving you more and more examples, you feel a little bit more confident that I'm talking about clothes. Okay? So if my pictures are better, it would help you understand things. It's like, but people start getting the idea. If I just show you one thing, you probably won't really understand what I'm talking about. But as you get more examples, oh, look at that. Now it's a bit more clear. So blah, it just means clothing. Bermuda. So this is not an actual English word. This is just an example of how the mind is trying to understand language. And if you don't understand well, you won't feel confident speaking. Okay? So yes, like there's a different word for each one of these things, but if I'm showing them all together and I'm using the same word for all of these things, then it feels, okay, now I understand what we're talking about. So we have, like in English, a tie, a baseball cap, or just a cap. We got a boot is supposed to be a shoe. It kind of looks like an ice skate or something. A shirt and some pants or shorts over here. All right, but when you think about teaching a new language to someone, this is what naturally varied review is. So you're trying to understand something by getting more and varied examples of it. The same way you would get that naturally. This is why I call it naturally varied review. But this is why you get these examples in real conversations from people. Okay? So my mother says blah. And my father says blah, and my sister says blah, and my teacher says blah. And like after I get all those examples, now I feel very confident. Blah means clothes or clothing or something you wear or whatever. So I don't draw a person in here, but the point is that now you understand we're talking about clothing, or you have a pretty good idea, and your ability to understand gets better as you get more examples. Okay, so this is the opposite of this is trying to take one word and repeating that thing or saying that thing to yourself. So do you see how repeating something, like saying something, doesn't make you more fluent? Getting more examples of it does make you fluent because you're understanding the word better. Okay, does that make sense? So the goal is to spend more time if you really understand something well, then you'll be able to use it. And so that's the goal of what I do with these videos, or especially with Fluent for Life. All right, let me go back. I think I got everybody. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Tom says, if only we had live classes from Teacher Drew every day. Well, you don't need live classes. That's what Fluent for Life is. Fluent for Life is it's like class with me every day. And not just me, but with lots of different native speakers. All right, well, I'm already going like way too long, but I wanted to give you so two more very quick examples is at the end of this. So just some more examples of how the native language can be different from what natives or from what you might learn in a textbook. So if we have something like I was talking with a friend of mine and he said, I took my car to a mechanic, but like he's not a very good mechanic. And so I said, why did you take him there? And he said, oh, like he's the only game in town. So I was asking a friend of mine, why did he take his car to this mechanic if the mechanic is not very good? So a mechanic, so a car mechanic, like a car, someone who can fix your car. I said, why did you take him to the car? Why did you take him to that mechanic if he's not very good? And my friend said, well, he's the only game in town. He's the only game in town. And so this is an example of something that I would probably not use in a lesson unless I'm teaching it. So I want to make it clear. Again, the whole point is to be understandable. But yeah, so like he's the only game in town. This is like an idea of where people go, like, okay, this is like maybe a fun thing to do, or it's the only example of something, even if it's not very good. So typically people use this like, well, he's the only mechanic. He could say that. So he like very correct, it would be fine English to say, well, he's the only mechanic in town, or he's the only mechanic in town. But this, now you sound much more like a casual, confident native speaker. Oh, he's the only game in town, or it's the only game in town. Okay? And so you can hear as you get more examples of this, like you hear more people using this, like I'm dating this girl. I live in a small town and I'm dating a girl, but I don't really like her very much. Oh, why are you dating her then? Well, she's the only game in town, you know. Yes, the only game in town, the only game in town. So it's like you can think about a game like a baseball game or some sporting event or something like that. Like people will go to something even if it's not very good just because it's the best thing available. Okay? So maybe in my small town there are no women because it's like a small fishing town or something. People don't, you know, whatever, women aren't really living there. So I found a girlfriend, but I don't really like her very much. But I date her because she's the only game in town. You know, so we can use this expression in the same way. So it doesn't mean he's an expert, like it means, wow, that's the best available, even if it's not very good. It's the only game in town. This is offensive? Not necessarily. I mean, typically we would talk about like saying something is the only game in town about something else. So I probably wouldn't use that directly. So if the girl says to me, Drew, like it doesn't seem like you like me very much. Why are you dating me? I would probably not say, oh, you're the only game in town. So I wouldn't say that to her directly, but we talk about that often. People will talk about something else. It like, well, it's okay. We don't have any other options, you know. So like I go to a hair cutting place, a barber, and there's only one barber in my town, but he's awful. He's a really bad barber, but I need a haircut and he's the only game in town. Okay? So he's the only game in town. That's an example, and you notice as you get more examples of it, so not just the same thing. So yes, he is the only mechanic in town, or she is the only woman I could date in town, but it sounds much more casual, much more native, more natural if I say, well, he's the only game in town. I'm showing people that I speak their language, okay? That's part of what communication is. So that's why we change the way we speak depending on the person we're speaking with. So if I go to some people and like I can sound like they do, or I know their vocabulary, like I will have a better relationship with those people. I know their language. Okay, it's not just about English. It's like the specific language that young people use, or that older people use, or people in a particular industry use, to know their language. Okay. So if a friend of mine says, yes, well, he's the only game in town, like I understand what he means by that, and like he's kind of using just a silly kind of expressive way of saying that. He's the only game in town. So if you think about like people teaching languages on YouTube, I am not the only game in town. There's lots of games you could go to in that same way. Okay. So you could say, she is the only game in town. She is the only game in town. Okay? Yes. So it may be if I'm the only person teaching English on YouTube, then I am the only game in town. But you would only say that if I'm bad at what I do. So if I'm the only one and I'm not very good at it, then it's like, well, you know, we have to go there because he's the only game in town. Like I want to learn some English. He's not a very good teacher, but he's the only game in town. All right. All right, let's see here. Yes, why am I watching it? Because you are the only game in town. Yes, but you got it exactly. Very good. So yes. So I always appreciate people coming to watch, but hopefully I'm teaching you something and you don't think of me as like, you know, he's just the only game in town, you know. So I think I'll save this example forever. Yes. What about he's a new kid in town, new mechanic? So if someone is new, like it doesn't really matter if they're new or old. It's just how many of them are there. If there's only one mechanic or one girl or one, you know, like place to go, maybe there's one restaurant in your town and the restaurant is not very good, but people go there because it's the only game in town. It's the only game in town. Okay? So as you understand the language better, you will feel more confident using it. You will think, when I hear this, I understand, like, now I'm speaking their language. I understand what they're saying. All right, let me check the time over here. Oh my goodness, 11:30. This is like the longest video ever, 110 minutes. Oh my goodness. All right, I'll give you one more example though, because I'm such a good guy. Let's see. Yes, so you could think about like if nobody else is live right now, you could say, he's the only game in town right now. So if you're looking for live lessons, I'm the only game in town. Maybe. I don't know who else is doing a live video right now. Probably somebody. All right. This next one is, so I was talking to a different friend of mine and like he was supposed to pick me up from the airport, but he forgot. So I was kind of mad at him. I said, why did you do that? He said, I'm sorry, man. I dropped the ball. This is another kind of sports phrase. So if you think about a person with a football, they're running and then, oh no, they drop the ball. They fumble the ball. So I dropped the ball. This is any time you're talking about making a mistake or you did something and you're kind of apologizing for it. So I'm sorry, I dropped the ball. I dropped the ball on that, or I dropped the ball in general. I dropped the ball. So if I forget to, like if you miss a meeting or you were trying to give a report, but you didn't study well and you didn't prepare it very well and you're apologizing, yes, I'm sorry, I dropped the ball on that. Okay, I dropped the ball on the report. All right, so you didn't like drop a ball on the report. You're talking about I dropped the ball on the thing I was supposed to be doing. So I should have prepared better, or I should have done something else, but I dropped the ball. Okay. So if you come here to learn something about English and I don't teach you anything, then I've dropped the ball on this education. So hopefully I don't drop the ball as I teach people. So I hopefully you are understanding things well, and because I know I'm not the only game in town, I have to do a good job and not drop the ball. Okay. All right. But right now, I'm going to drop, just like pass out, if I don't get some water, and I need to get some food too. So we've been going an hour and 12 minutes. All right. Anyway, well, hopefully you have enjoyed this. I don't want to just pass out in front of people. I do have some more work to do, but again, hopefully you have enjoyed this. If you have, do like the video, click the like button. It does help the channel, and it tells YouTube, hey, you should tell other people about this guy. He's not the only game in town, but people should come watch him because he's good. All right. If you would like to learn more, if you have been enjoying this and you want me to actually lead you step by step to become fluent as quickly as possible, to basically guarantee fluency for you, and if you care more about your time than your money, then click on the link in the description below this video. If not, you can still take these same principles and go use them and become fluent by yourself. It's just a little bit more of a pain in the ass and a little bit probably a longer process. But again, if you'd like help, click on the link in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.